Last week, Pastor Austin began preaching on one of the I am statements in John where Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And if you missed that message, you can go to our YouTube channel or podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or if you're weird and you do Google, we can do that too. You can just search Legacy Church Fayetteville and it should pop up. But today we're going to hit a couple more of those I am statements in John. So we've been going over this series. If you don't have one of our reading plans, you can get it at the table in the back. Highly encourage it. It's been great. It's been very reflective to see the life of Jesus and his claims to divinity just throughout the book of John. But before we get into the verses of today, I wanted to just ask simply this question to keep in mind. What is the good life? As we read that, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we read our verses. And you might hear that, and immediately your first thought of what is the good life might be on a golf course. That can be very frustrating for some, much like myself. It did not go well this past Friday. Derek and Austin can attest to that. It was not good. Or maybe your mind goes to a vacation. You're sitting at an all-inclusive resort, kid-free, of course, eating some poolside nachos, having a nice, refreshing beverage. Sounds pretty great. Or maybe, if you're weird, the good life sounds like hiking on a mountain. I don't know, not for me. Some people like that. You guys are a different breed. I appreciate it. Maybe that good life looks like retirement, traveling the country in your RV, seeing some of the most beautiful sights. Right, Tim? Yeah. It's my father-in-law. I get to say that. Maybe the good life's your bank account. Maybe it's a few extra zeros, maybe a couple extra commas. I don't think we would mind that. Maybe it's the Hogs winning some games this fall. Side note, I was at a breakfast with Coach Pittman, not me and him directly, but he was speaking this past Friday, and I'm sold. He was like super optimistic. We're going 500, right? Like we're going to win half our games. But as we read along today, I want to keep that question in mind. What is the good life? Or better yet, how do we attain it? So if you open up your Bibles to John 10, we're going to kick it off in verse 1. We'll have it on the screens for you as well. Very truly, these are the words of Jesus. Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, or truly, truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. Some of your translations there might say door, but it says, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters in through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, and I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. All right, that was a lot. There was a lot of stuff about sheep, shepherds, doors, gates, enemies, wolves. And I'm not a shepherd. I don't know you. If you're a shepherd, please raise your hand at some point. But I am not a shepherd. It takes a second for me to have a clue of what's going on. But back then, the audience Jesus was speaking to would have been really familiar with this kind of illustration, and probably would have recently been around a sheep pen, probably as frequently as we drive by like a Taco Bell or a McDonald's. But I'm 31 and I've never seen a sheep pen. So there's no familiarity there. So we got to do a little bit of work, and I'm going to show you an example of maybe what that sheep pen would look like. Throw it on the screens. Shout out to production. When we're clicking. If we're not, it's like the kickers of football. Everybody hates us. So right here we have a sheep pen. This is a more recent one. Obviously, they didn't take this picture 2,000 years ago. There were no cameras. Just notice, though, it's not very high. It's not very large. Generally would have been around 4 or 5 feet tall. But it would have been located in the fields in proximity to the flock where the shepherd was leading his sheep. That way, if there was bad weather or it was nighttime, something was attacking them, he could easily lead them in. An interesting observation here is I want you to notice there's no door. There's no gate. We're going to come back to that in a little bit. But one thing to also note about this is sheep aren't very smart. They're pretty dumb animals. I've been around sheep, never a sheep pen, weird, but they're pretty dumb. But the consensus is that the shepherd, when speaking to the sheep, that the sheep would follow and that they would listen to them, even going as far as the shepherd naming his sheep individually. And I'm going to let you in on a secret today in this passage. We are the sheep. I'm so sorry. But with that in mind, you might be thinking, cool, then what does that mean for us? I'm glad you asked. That's our next point. So in John 10:3-4, the gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. So number one, in your notes, if you're taking notes, the good shepherd is known by his sheep. The good shepherd is known by his sheep. In order for a sheep to know him, there needs to be a basis of a relationship, right? Like a shepherd can't shepherd if his sheep don't know who he is, right? Like there's got to be some sort of rapport or familiarity between them. You see in the verses before, the sheep don't know the hired hand. That would probably be more of a stranger to them. But the shepherd, he's probably known these sheep since they were babies or ewes. He probably named them, Baba, Fluffy, maybe Brian. But now we know the role of the sheep here, that they know their shepherd. Okay, now with that in mind, let's look at the role of the shepherd to the sheep, right? In that same verse, we can put it back on the screens. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. So number two, taking notes, the good shepherd leads. The good shepherd leads. You see, it would do the sheep no good to know the voice of their shepherd, the one that leads them out into grazing fields or pastures or to water, and not follow him, to not let the shepherd lead them. It seems pretty easy to get. It's almost a little too easy. Sheep, know and listen. Shepherd, lead. Great, cool, we can wrap it up, be done for the day, right? Like, band, come on, we're done. Record time. But Jesus' audience isn't getting it, and so I think we need to dive back in a little bit further. And we see that in verse 6, or verse 7. He's going to try to explain it to them a little bit simpler. So John 10:7-9. Therefore Jesus said again, and I like to read that of like, Jesus is like, come on, really? Like I gotta explain this? Felt like you guys should know, like sheep and shepherds, they're like right over there. But they're not getting it. So he has to come back to the illustration, lay it out a little more simple for them. And he says, therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters in through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. Great, so there's another I am statement right there from Jesus. I'd go ahead and anytime you see those here in John, just underline them, score them. You can write in your Bibles, it's okay. And I can get that can be a little confusing because we read on later that Jesus is going to say, I am the good shepherd, but here he's saying, I am the gate. Those two thoughts, while they might seem separate, are pretty synonymous. If we can go ahead and throw that picture of the sheep pen back up. So when it comes, there's no door. Told you we'd come back to that. Gosh, trust me a little bit. This pen that his audience would have been familiar with, would have known there's more than likely no door or no gate there. And when Jesus is saying here, I am the gate or I am the door, one thing to know is back then shepherds would actually lay or sit or stand in that gap for their sheep. So by saying, I am the good shepherd to my flock, he's also saying, I am the gate. that if anything wants to come in, any predator wants to come in and attack my sheep or flock, they've got to go through me. If any of my sheep want to get a little crazy because they're dumb and they want to go out at the wrong time when I don't want them to, they got to come through me. I get to protect them. So he's saying, as the shepherd to my flock, I am the gate. So number 3 in your notes, the good shepherd protects. The good shepherd protects. This is a really profound and provocative statement right here that Jesus is saying. Right, he's telling these people, let me be your gate. Let me be the one that leads you. No more running scared. He's saying, I will protect you. There's no more scared feeling, no more need to be anxious. I'm standing in the gap for you. He's saying, let me lead you. Listen to me, sheep. You can be dumb. There's enemies out there that want to steal from you. They want to kill you. They want to destroy you. They want to rob from you. But I know you. I know what you need. And it's me. David, a shepherd, would have been pretty familiar with this, I like to think. He wrote this about 1,000 years before the time of Jesus. In Psalm 23, 1-6, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So we can see here David is writing about God the shepherd who's leading him, right, protecting him, comforting him. And we see that Jesus is making the same claim of divinity and equality with God. And that's what would make this such a provocative statement as he's talking to these people. They would have been really familiar with this psalm written by David. And that's what ultimately makes this a little bit dangerous for Jesus to make. And with his next I am statement, he reads on, he says, I am the gate. Whoever enters in through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, to kill, and destroy. I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. So number 4 in your notes. We're cruising through this, man. Number 4 in your notes, the good shepherd provides a full life. The good shepherd provides a full life. So earlier I asked that question, what is the good life? Well, we get the answer right here, right? Like just jot it on down. The good life is the full life. That word full in John 10, it's interesting when you break it down. I'm no Greek scholar, but I did recently start Duolingo. Mostly did it as a way to get away from my kids for like 10 minutes. Maybe thought learning Greek would be cool. It's not, and it hasn't worked that well. But it did make me buy one of those English to Greek New Testament Bibles. And so what's interesting is when you read this verse, I have come that they may have a life and have it to the full. That word full, when you look at it, it translates to the Greek word parison. And that word parison, when you define it out, is defined as superior or extraordinary or surpassing. It's uncommon, more remarkable, more excellent. So here Jesus is saying that he's come to offer you that life. Not the 100% full, but I'm here to give you 110% more full than what everything else can provide. He's saying I've given you an extraordinary life, an uncommon, superior life, completely unattached from your circumstances through me. You see, if we let life be dictated by our circumstances or situations, or maybe when things don't go our way, or we have a little bump of the road, or what we want doesn't work out, or maybe what we feel like we need doesn't work out, or what you're saying our truth is that people disagree with, that kind of thinking and attachment to your life and those pleasures and pursuits that are ultimately looking inward, that tethered, there's no value to life in that, right? There's no fullness. But here Jesus is saying, do you want real life? Do you want the fullness of life? Know and follow me, your shepherd. We can see that everywhere around our current culture, right? Like we look at people and think like, man, they got the good life. They got what I want. They're wealthy. They have all the comforts of society and social media. All of those things are telling us to push away our discomforts and to go after these earthly things, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying those things are necessarily bad. I'm just saying they're not going to provide the fullness. So my 8 to 5, the way that I make my money is in advertising. So like, those pesky little ads that follow you around. You're like, man, I looked at that on Amazon, but now it's like showing up everywhere. Maybe I added it to my cart. That's me. I'm so sorry. I'm one of those guys. I'm not proud of it. I'm proud of it. It's fine. Because it works sometimes. But it got me. It worked on me. A few months and months and months ago, my wife and I talked about this present that she was kind of really wanting. And I was like, I don't know, it just seems a little, But we've talked about it for a long time. Well, Amazon Prime Day happened, right? And I got, I'm not going to lie. And we didn't need it, but I was convinced in that moment that I needed it. It's like 40% discount from its original price, but it's actually still its original price. And it's one of those, I'm just going to tell you what it is. It's one of those like mini mattress, like AC units, blows the cold air in. Sounds great, right? Right? Like that's going to make our sleep so much better, which will make our life so much better. And the truth is, it's fractionally better. It's not like incredible. It's not great. But in that moment, I was convinced that I needed it, that it would make our life better. Because I had my comfort in that moment as chief of what I wanted, what it meant to feel the fullness of something, the good life. And when we do that, we miss what Jesus is telling us. He's saying, come through the gate, come find joy and comfort that can't be taken away depending on your circumstances or what your AC unit is set to at night. Anything below 68, you're wild, but we can talk about it. And what makes these claims so provocative and ultimately dangerous that Jesus is saying to these Pharisees in this next section is, and we'll read that in John 10:10. He says, the thief comes only to steal, to kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. Go ahead, right there, underline that. There's another I am. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. When he sees the wolf coming, he abandons his sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Okay, so right there, the thief comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. You might, like me, have heard that your whole life and thought, Satan, that's the thief coming to get me. And the truth is, yes, he is the enemy of your story. He is the villain of the story here. But that's not what Jesus is pointing to. That's not who Jesus is referring to right here. So go ahead and you can write in your Bible again. You can circle the word thief right there and then just draw a line right up to the word Pharisees in verse 1. You see, we have the benefit now, 2,000 years later, knowing Pharisees are kind of the bad guys here too, right? That's not what it would have been back then in the day. They would have been looked at as the ones of status, the ones who portray the good life. Maybe they have wealth or knowledge or closeness to God. And at the end of chapter 9, before this, go back and read it if you haven't, in Jesus' ministry, him and the Pharisees are having a bit of a run-in. He heals a blind man. Then they basically excommunicate that blind man, but they're like, who did this? Who healed you? Where is he? And that's where chapter 10 is picking up. And in verse 8, Jesus, he mentions who come before me are thieves and robbers. And that's who he's talking to here, the Pharisees. We're talking about is the Pharisees. They would have had the picture of the good life, the one that really probably can't be attained. And what's so profound is Jesus is saying here, that vision of the good life Like you're missing what's in front of you. It's me. I'm the shepherd. I am the gate. I'm the one that's going to protect you. And when you're in the pen, I'll be the one that leads you out into provision. You see, the Pharisees were missing what God's promise was right in front of them. They were the ones leading those away. They were the thieves and the robbers, Jesus said. He says, the thief only comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. But I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. He's the good shepherd. Jesus is the good shepherd. He's the one that we should be listening to. He's the one we should be following, the one we should be obeying. Those things, those voices, all of those things are going to eventually steal from you. They're going to try to kill you. They're going to try to destroy your life and rob you of what God has right in front of you. But not Jesus, not the good shepherd, not the one who offers life, parison, or abundantly. Right before we close, I want to leave with this quote by C.S. Lewis. I think it's great. There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. And so all around the room, if we could just close our eyes, we're going to go